she cannot come. And the topic is soil classification in an altitudinal gradient between 3,000 and 4,500 meters of the Citlaltépetl volcano in Mexico. I don't know why all these volcanoes have such difficult names. So we will wait 1 minute more and then we start. So please take your seats. Yes, please say the people to come in.
Is there a pointer oder sowas?
Ich glaube. Ah ja, der da.
Lass mich mal eben
Probier mal.
familiarisieren.
Okay.
Ist es noch morgens oder ist es schon nachmittags? Wie spät ist es?
Nachmittags, so vor 43.
Okay, dann sage ich Good Afternoon.
Ja, good afternoon. Okay, thank you. We will start now.
Und wer gibt mir, wenn ich hier drücke, kommt meine Präsentation?
Ich habe das überhaupt nicht angeschaut.
Ha.
Sagst du, sag ich.
Hola, ¿alguien me va a poner mi presentación? ¿O qué tengo que hacer para lograrlo?
Könnt ihr das Mikrofon besser einstellen? Also den Peter habe ich vorhin exzellent verstanden, jetzt gerade nicht.
Hörst du mich jetzt? Can you understand me? Good afternoon. Well, I don't know if my presentation will come up or where to search here for it. Does anybody know? Descargas día 1. Maybe. Ah, yeah. Here.
Okay.
So, presentation mode. Reunirse ahora. ¿Cómo macht man das denn auf Presentation Mode? ¿Dónde lo pongo en modo presentación? Porque creo que es la PowerPoint la que me pusieron aquí.
Ah, es que esta es esta.
Ah, entonces ponme la de abajo,
La de
la
abajo.
PowerPoint.
Listo.
Y en esa ya se
En
pone.
esa ya está. Listo, disculpe.
Sale.
Listo.
There we are. Okay, again, good afternoon. I'm presenting on behalf of Beatriz Marin. Beatriz Marin was a postdoc at our institute pre-pandemic, and she was engaged in a project at the Citlaltépetl volcano, or the Pico de Orizaba. Some of you might know it more by that name. And I was there with her, happily joining this project. The Citlaltépetl is more than 5,600 meters high. It's a national park area. It's a stratovolcano made out of andesitic and dacitic materials. And it started activity 650,000 years before present, and it's still active. Up and then it has volcanic activity. And the project studied here an altitudinal gradient between 3,000 and 4,500 meters. The rationale was that there is enough variation in ambient humidity and precipitation and temperature and vegetation cover to study the evolution of soils and site quality along this climate sequence, and that this would work nicely as a proxy for climate change scenarios. And additionally, the project aimed to assess ecosystem services along this gradient. very schematically, I draw here the sequence in the middle, the altitudinal gradient, and then you see there on the right-hand side the altitude, and you see that at the uppest level there is very sparse vegetation cover, and mainly lichens and mosses covering some of the rocks. And then a bit below that, alpine grassland starts, and the tree line is around 4,000 meters. And then below that, we have a pine forest. And the precipitation is there is one meteorological station at this altitude, and it shows 860 millimeters of rain, mainly between June and October. And then at the lower part, there is another meteorological station showing precipitation of 1,360 millimeters. And again, the rainy season is mainly June till October or November. And the temperature goes from 9 degrees here around 3,000 meters. And at the uppest part, we have a mean annual temperature around 0. And the parent materials are mainly volcanic ash deposits, fallouts directly over dacitic or andesitic lava, or reworked ash, and also pumice deposits. And in the uppermost areas, there are also moraine features. So the glacier that was, and sometime even going down to less than 4,000 meters, has moved the materials in this region. Yeah, the vegetation a bit more in detail. The main pine tree is Pinus hartwegi, and in the grassland, the main species is Calamagrostis, also together with Festuca. And yeah, we have a lot of other herbs and nice plants over there. So, this general project was a joint venture between France and Mexico. And the main goal of the project was to determine how the promotion of specific ecosystem services are beneficial or not to the local anthropogenic communities, and also to soil quality. So there was a comparison between France with more ecotourism and in Mexico more logging and cattle grazing, and also to answer fundamental research questions concerning soil ecosystem processes and links with plant communities. There were people looking specifically at the plant soil traits or root traits in this area. And well, here now I will only present you what the soils we have described and classified, because this is a Congress on soil classification. So when we went out to sample profiles, we took care that all our profiles have the same orientation to the east, showing to the east. We looked for having homogeneous slope at the different sites, and always look that the vegetation cover is representative for the altitudinal floor, and that it is hopefully less perturbed as possible. And with the parent material, we took particularly care that we always are at sites where we have volcanic ash. Above a pumice layer, particularly below the tree line, we can find a very marked and well identifiable pumice layer that has been dated around 12,000 years before present. And we were always checking, do we see it here? And then we have like a control about age, no, more or less. But above the tree line, we didn't find it. It's too dynamic, geomorphologically speaking, and the pumice is mixed with the ash fallouts because less plant cover leads to more erosion And yeah, there we couldn't really follow this scheme. So yeah, we have 7 profiles below the tree line. Here are the altitudes and pictures of the cover. So we are mainly under the pine forest, and we always have in the herbaceous strata the festuca or the calamagrostis grasses. And as you see, the soils are deeply developed with prominent AH horizons, often very, very thick. And in these places, I think we have colluvial impact, so it's reworked ash. And in others, we have the ash in situ, and then also a very nicely B horizon developed. But in general, all these soils, the main feature is that they have prominent AH horizons, and then also some buried A horizons in some places. And then above the tree line, we have more stony and sandy soils. As I said, this area, depending on the plant cover, is very unstable, and you can just see a horizon that is quite shallow and not much more of pedogenic features. And then I made now a series of graphs where I always show the altitude in the x-axis, and then in this case the carbon stock calculated in the solum as megagram per hectare. And then here is, I showed where the tree line is, and you see below the tree line we have these prominent A horizons with large carbon stocks that show more or less linear behavior when you go downwards. And if I check for diagnostic horizons, these two might check for melanic. I did not have the data for the melanic index, but the color and all other requirements are met. In this profile, it met the fulvic because of the color requirement. And in these ones, I think we have umbric, but I still have doubts on our base saturation data, which due to the pandemic, I couldn't ask them to do them again. So I am in doubt. If it's not an umbric, then these will be a mollic, and these up here will even be chernic horizons. So there I'm still in doubt. And then here in the uppermost part of our gradient, we have ocric horizons. And these here, they also qualify as hyperhumic horizons. Then here I show you the pH measured in water along the altitudinal gradient. I didn't make it last night to show which are the A and which the B horizons. So these are all the measurements in each profile in the horizons. But I tell you that the A horizons are here, mainly below 5 or close to 5. And these are the subsurface horizons that have pH values that go up to 6. Then I show you here this indicator for the andic properties, which is the aluminum plus half of the iron extractable with ammonium oxalate in the dark. And here I put the thresholds for between tephric and vitric and vitric and andic. And you see that below the tree line, and particularly in the subsoil, we have andic properties, and the whole profile has andic properties or fulfills this criterion only at 3,000 meters. And in the others, the upper part of the soil is vitric, and the lower part fulfills this andic criterion, and only the uppermost part of the chronosequence goes for tephric. The other indicator for andic properties is the phosphorus fixation capacity. And you see again, this one meets it fully. And here in the subsoil, it is perfectly met. And then, yeah, we fall into the vitric part. And these ones then classify as tephric. And with the bond density, it's the same. This one then fully qualifies as Andic properties. And here then, although we have less than 0.9 grams per cubic centimeter, we don't meet the criteria here for the phosphorus fixation and also this one. So these then are vitric horizons. And then coming to an end, I did the whole classification and just showing you how the general picture looks like. We have in the lowest part of this gradient, I would say it will meet the alu-andic, but I still don't have the pyrophosphate extractable aluminum. So I'm waiting for those data. But I think it will be alu-andic in the most part of the upper soil. And then the other qualifiers are loamic, hyperhumic, melanic, and proto-andic. And the next step in the gradient will be an epivitric endosylandic andosol, loamic and fulvic. And then we go into district umbric, folic, epivitric, endosylandic andosol with all these classifiers. And then we have all these ones that are district umbric, vitric andosols. In this part, proto-andic. And then up here, we start getting into coarse textured and less developed vitric andosols until we reach here at around 4,300 meters, the regosols, and they are tephric regosols, skeletic, and well, I also put them the district, but I still have to verify, as I said, this base saturation. So that's all from my side, and ready for questions. Thank you. I acknowledge my colleagues, of course, and the funding by CONACYT.
Thank you very much, Cristina. Are there questions? Comments, questions? So it was a very interesting presentation, and I like very much this sequence along the volcano from tephric regosol, vitric regosol, vitric andosol is proto-andic, and then the real, probably allo-andic andosol. It is like it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cesare, please.
Little question. So beautiful, slow, and not polluting nowhere.
Yeah, you are right. But I don't feel comfortable because coluvic, in the way you define it in the WRB, says that it has to be accelerated erosion due to human activities. Thank you, Cesare, for this question, because if I read it exactly, then I cannot say that this is coluvic, but I should. In many places, I should say that it is a colluvium. And in the German soil classification, I could notice this perfectly, but here I can't. And that is something good that you asked me, because that is something I don't feel comfortable about. I cannot show it here in the classification.
Well, so the general description in the WRB is only a description for the decision whether a material property in diagnostic horizon is present, only the criteria count. So in the criteria, it is not said that it is by human intervention.
So I should just do it.
And then
Okay.
Maybe add it or not.
Yeah, then I would do that because several of these are reworked volcanic ash sites. Yeah. And some also I need to add the Novik, which I have not done because I started doing the details last night and I didn't go through it. But Novik is probably also there at some.
So we have 4 people who want to tell something. I think we can only allow 2. Who were the first ones?
I don't know. Okay. I was not, but my question is very, let's say the answer would be very short, I think. Okay, I don't need this. The first is, is there any correlation between the altitude and the texture? Because in this qualifiers, we can see that it's somehow it is, but I think that it's very hard to estimate the texture in such materials, and maybe you found some, maybe not. The second question, because maybe you know that I am personally really interested about the sequences of the soils, and this sequence is very beautiful but very complex. And on the beginning, you told that it's climate sequence.
Yeah.
I think that in this case, the most, maybe not the most important, but the basic factor is the topography, the altitude, then it's climate, then it's
Age of the parent material.
See, it's a complex thing. It's a topo, climo, probably chrono sequence, but I don't have the dating. That's what I looked for, this pumice part, no?
So maybe it should be called, yes, like a topo, a clima, phytosequence or something like this. What do you feel?
But then I am again at the soil forming factors. No, it's true. I agree with you. It's complex.
First about the texture.
Yeah, the texture, sure. I have in the upper part skeletic, arenic, and as the surface gets stabilized due to more plant cover, then we start getting neoformation of and mainly allophane-like materials, and then we start getting loamy silt and yeah.
Last question for the news, please. The other people, please contact here in the last question.
Somewhere maybe between the 3,000 and 3,600 meters, you must have found probably another belt of fir forest, abies, below the Pinus carbeyi, and there is a big difference between the in density and everything, and it's just that you found differences also in soil.
Yes, well, there is a part where you have abies, but also mixed with Pinus hartwegi. And I don't have right now the data on how much pine and how much fir we have there. But there is, but we did not sample to separate soils under abies and under pine. But there is. Mm-hmm.
Thank you again, Cristina. Now we have to change. The next is Daisy Valera, and it will be virtual again. The technique is ready.
No, sí está, ¿no, Daisy?
There is a change in the program, and then now Siebe is complete, and Daisy presented a poster.
Y aquí está tu plática, Sergey.
The first page of the program is the forest one.
I have two versions, and in none of them Sergey is mentioned. But okay, if you tell me that,
Nevertheless,
you're mentioned for the other.
yes, I was moved to the morning session. I think they should be there already. Yes, yes, and maybe Arturo will tell us.
Who will take the slot this year?